Boxing Truth here. Let's talk a little bit about Gervonta Davis, who put on an impressive performance this past weekend, made a statement, became the new super featherweight champion for the IBF in an impressive performance against Pedraza. It was a good fight. We found out a little more about Gervonta Davis. It was hard to, just with the eye test, to see if this kid really could perhaps be a threat at 130. It's just hard with the type of opposition he was fighting before Pedraza. I mean, he was fighting a lot of cannon fodder, nobodies, guys that as soon as they felt Davis's power, they stumbled. They didn't provide much resistance. And in this fight, Davis took a big leap in competition compared to the guys he was fighting, and he found that out firsthand. He was, as soon as the fight started, he was able to land his power punches, to land his dynamic shots, his uppercuts, and he soon realized that it was going to take more than just one shot to get Pedraza out of there, who's a seasoned guy, who has some experience. So he's an okay champion, not the biggest threat at 130. He was the right opponent for Davis in his first step up in his career. And Davis started out very fast, came out to a blitzing start. Pedraza just didn't respect Davis. You could tell before the fight, the way Pedraza was talking about Davis, talking about his competition, the trash opposition he was fighting. And he had no respect for Davis. He thought he was going to sun this kid. He thought he was going to walk him down and be too seasoned for him, and that his power just wasn't going to be enough. And you could see Pedraza, his game plan was trash. I mean, he tried to sun Davis. He tried to walk him down. He tried to outman him, trying to tell the young buck that, this is, you in the big leagues now. You're fighting real competition. And he displayed that to Davis, because Davis was hitting him with some hard shots, but Pedraza wasn't going anywhere for the first latter part of the fight. And he tested Davis's gas tank. Davis got a little winded. He needed a second win because he was finally getting some resistance in his career. But Davis responded very well. I was impressed with his performance. He showed he's not just a power puncher. You can see with the eye test, he's got some explosion. He's a fresh, young, strong guy. He's got some good power in his hands. But he showed more than just punching power. He showed skill. He showed counter-punching ability, movement. He's fluid. And the guy's a pretty good fighter. I was impressed. And he was able to come off to a fast start, have some resistance in the middle rounds as Pedraza was trying to. His game plan was to tire Davis out, get him to punch himself out, throw a lot of punches, take him to the deep waters, then eventually drown him. But Davis wasn't following that script. He was able to overcome the adversity. He was able to get a second win, and he was able to put on a statement performance, getting Pedraza out of there, knocking him out. It was an embarrassing night for Pedraza. I mean, got beat up by some young prospect, an untested one at that. But Davis showed his mettle. He showed that he's a good fighter, and that eventually he could possibly be a big threat at 130 pounds. Now, of course, people already banging the drums, some supporters, and especially some of Davis's haters. They want him to take a really big step, already calling for a fight with Lomachenko. Now, Davis doesn't need to be rushed into a Lomachenko fight just yet. The kid's 22 years old. He's a baby. He's a young pup. Pretty good fighter, but let's get some seasoning. Let's get some more experience. And he's gonna do what other champions, newly crowned champions, do. I mean, why take that step in that direction against Lomachenko right now? Floyd Mayweather, of course, he's being smart. He did the right thing pulling Davis out of the Jason Sosa fight. That wasn't the right fight to take. Sosa is, in my opinion, is a better fighter than Pedraza. He's much stronger. He's much more durable, and he's a much bigger puncher. So that was a much more dangerous fight. So Mayweather did the right thing pulling Davis out of that fight and matching him with a weaker champion in Pedraza, who's seasoned, experienced, but didn't have the punching power to really threaten Gervonta Davis. So that was good matchmaking by Floyd. He took the risk, he rolled the dice, and as a result, he's got a new champion in the stable. But Davis doesn't need to fight Lomachenko immediately. I mean, other champions, newly crowned champions, have taken the same route. They took voluntary defenses, optional defenses. They build up their brand. They get a homecoming fight, whatever. But it's the norm when it comes to newly crowned champions. Some champions, they take that step up. They take that challenge. They go after a big fight. They go after a unification fight. But for Davis, in his case, he's a young guy, only 22 years old. Let's get some more seasoning, some more experience. And besides, there's some guys he could fight within the IBF rankings. There's some fun fights he could be involved, fights that are good fights for him, that can get him some experience. I mean, there's been other champions that have taken the same path. They take at least one optional defense, two. I mean, look at the trash opponents Joshua fought after he became champion. Now he's taking his leap in competition, his challenge against Klitschko. Vasyl Lomachenko also took some voluntary defenses. It wasn't by his choice, but still, he stayed busy and took some optional defenses in between before the big fights. But for Davis, there are some opponents within the top 15 of the IBF that he could fight. And the best fight, in my opinion, for him, if I was Floyd, I would put him in there with the current number 5 rated contender in the IBF, and that's Javier Fortuna. I think that's a great fight for Davis. It's a name guy who's experienced, who's been in some significant fights. He's a fun fighter to watch in Fortuna. And it's a good fight for Davis. I mean, Fortuna, he's seasoned. He's a big puncher. He's got an awkward style, but he's a vulnerable guy. He's very susceptible to left hooks, uppercuts, and he's also chinny. So it's a winnable fight for Davis. It's a good fight for him, and also it gets him more experience to fight a guy who's also going to provide resistance. But it's an opponent that definitely Davis could beat. If I'm Floyd, I take that fight next for Davis as a voluntary defense. If he has to take a mandatory, Liam Walsh, a UK fighter, is the number 1 contender. But there's definitely some fights out there for Davis within the top 15 rankings. Fortuna would be the best fight for him. I would stay away from Tevin Farmer. Fuck that fight. Unless Farmer's a mandatory, that's the only way he's going to get his shot. I mean, I wouldn't mind the fight, but I really doubt Floyd would put him in there with Tevin Farmer. But out of all these guys I see, the best opponent, the most exciting, the opponent that will give Davis more recognition, will give him some respect if he was to defeat this opponent, would be Javier Fortuna. Fortuna's coming off a really good, exciting win over a prospect. Let's see if he can, if they can make this fight happen. It's a perfect fight for Davis, coming off an emphatic win over Pedraza. Let's get some optional defenses. Let's get some experience. And after maybe 2 fights, he's definitely ready for the class of the 130-pound division. He'll be ready for Vargas. He'll be ready for the Francisco Vargas, the Salidos of the world. And then eventually, it'll be a difficult fight to make because of the politics, but definitely, eventually, the fight to be made at 130 would be Gervonta Davis versus Lomachenko. But let's calm the fuck down. Let's chill out. Let the kid get some experience. A Jason Sosa fight down the line also makes sense for Davis after some more learning fights, more development fights, and also a national defense against Fortuna will be the perfect fight for him. But y'all let me know what y'all think. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.